Hi, Steve Arterburn here, and thanks for joining me for Going Deeper. This is not the Going Deeper sign or logo. This is Life Recovery Today with Steve Arterburn. It's my brand new television show. It's on the NRB network, 11 o'clock Eastern Time. You can find out all about it at liferecoverytoday.net. So tune in, and in the meantime, I hope you'll continue to watch right here where we're going to go deeper into marriage. Magnificent marriage. We're starting that today. How every single marriage, no matter how desperate, can have some hope. Let's get on with that. Okay, so starting a series, and I'm going to tell you today what we're going to cover, give you a little insight into each one. It's called Magnificent Marriage. And it's hope for any marriage. Because if you have two people that are working on a marriage, there is literally hope for any two people. Now, here's what we've heard. I remember hearing people say, well, with the COVID virus and so many people back home, we're going to have a lot of pregnancies in 9 months. But I never thought that. And in fact, what I thought would happen is we've never spent this much time together as a whole. Some people, things aren't different, but for many, you've never spent this much time together. And as a result, it's really tough. I mean, it is not fun whatsoever. So, we've got a lot of people in a lot of trouble. And so, given that fact, I want to try to provide some level of help for the folks that find themselves in big trouble. So, magnificent marriage, hope, that's what we're going to try to do. And here we go. We're going to talk about communication. This is one of the things that people have found makes marriages better, when you can actually communicate. Now, we're really not talking about talking. We're talking about really communicating. And a lot of times, we don't do that at all. We talk, and we are the only ones, me, myself, the talker, is the only person that actually hears what is said. So, if we're going to communicate, we have to learn some different things. A lot of times people avoid talking about tough things. That'll be some of the things that we deal with. And, you know, for us to talk but not listen, it's kind of a crummy way to communicate. So what we're going to talk about is how do you engage, how do you truly hear the other person, how do you attune with them? Because that is the ultimate way that we can communicate. And I really hope and pray that there'll be something here so that whatever your conflict is, you're going to be able to talk about it so that you can resolve it. So it isn't, you're not just dragging it along in the relationship. So I would ask you, what is that communication like between you and your spouse? Does it need a little bit of help? Well, that's what we're going to cover tomorrow. Communication. Okay, second thing, let's talk about feeling loved or not feeling loved. Everybody feels love in a little bit different way. And one of the problems that we've discovered is that how I feel loved isn't necessarily going to be beneficial if I do the same to the other person. Let me give you an example. I was talking to a gentleman today, came into my office, and he and his wife are having trouble. He does all this stuff. I mean, she says he does everything. Well, one of the interesting things about men that do everything is maybe you do it because it's the right thing to do. Maybe you do it because you feel responsible, or she wouldn't do it, whatever it is. But it's interesting. When a man is doing some of these things, it doesn't necessarily draw the woman to him. It's amazing. I love to cook, but I know that that isn't something that draws my wife to me. She's grateful when I cook and she doesn't have to. She loves my food. But if I expect that that's going to draw her to me, I'm wrong. I don't know, maybe it's because she feels bad that she's not doing it, or whatever it is. I don't know. Maybe her dad cooked and she was angry at him, or don't know. I just know that it doesn't necessarily make things better or make the person feel loved. And that's what you want to do. So don't think that you can just do these things and then she's going to feel loved. And by the same token, there are things that women do that you think, oh, he loved me for this, but no, it just doesn't connect. So we want to deal with, how do we feel loved? Communicate that to the other person. How do they truly feel loved? And how do we do that in a better way? Now, third thing we're going to talk about is baggage. Now, everybody brings into the marriage a nice set of luggage. And so often we think that once we eat some wedding cake, all the bags get unpacked and all the demons run away and we don't have any more problems because, well, hey, after all, we ate some wedding cake. You know, it just doesn't work that way. What we're going to deal with is not just the baggage that we bring in, but the impact that other people who've had a lot of baggage have on us. So, what is it in my childhood that causes me to avoid any kind of pain or avoid any kind of intimacy? So we're going to talk about that. And then sometimes our wound would cause me to be what is called a vacillator. And I become your best friend instantly, best friend. And it's almost like the relationship is all consuming as your best friend. And then pretty soon I turn on you. And you never know what to expect from me. One day it's like you're engulfed in my presence and love and attention. And the next day I don't want anything to do with you. So we're going to talk about, how does that happen? What kind of very insecure, chaotic home produces that? Some people end up being the victim. So we'll talk about all of these things. And there's parts of us that develop into different ways of being. Like sometimes the only way I can feel good about myself, if I don't feel really good about myself, is to make myself look better than you. What a sad thing if I want to have a great marriage and I don't even know it, but I'm out there trying to make myself look better than you. Isn't that sad? Wouldn't that be a sad thing to do? Maybe I am a person who, everything in me, I try to get all the attention that I can get. I need that. Maybe I just have this need to not be ignored. And then there's another kind of strange baggage we bring in, and that is no one's worse than me baggage. I'm the victim. In fact, not only am I the victim, but I'm also often, I present this helplessness that's in front of me. So we'll talk about that. Then we're going to talk about talking about the hard stuff to talk about. Because it's hard to talk about it. For some people, finances, that's the big one. And it can, we're going to spend a whole day on finances. But we'll talk about the hard talk of finances and kids, step kids, or as I refer to them or want them to be, bonus kids. We got to talk about dreams, goals, sacrifice. We'll talk about all these. We're talking about the hard things to talk about. And then, as I mentioned, finances. Boy, this is a big divider of a lot of people if you can't agree on finances. I've seen people come in and one person wants all the control. This really sick guy married a friend of ours, and we tried to tell her, wouldn't listen. Second she got married, she drove a BMW. He took that, put that title in his name, took everything, all of her finances away from her. She thought he was just being a godly man. Oh my goodness. He so mistreated her. And I think they lasted about a year together. But we're going to talk about finances and spending and investing a little bit here, spend a little bit there, save here, give. All those things relate to finances. And so there are a lot of different places that we can really get in trouble. And then we're going to talk about boundaries. Another way to look at boundaries is just limits. We're going to see what the limits need to be on my in-laws and on my own parents. What do the boundaries need to be with our kids? Do we have a space that is separate from kids? Well, how about just boundaries with hobbies or sports that one or the other likes? Shouldn't there be some limits on how much of that is done? And work, of course, boundaries, limits. We need to look at that because we have to communicate about it, and we have to set a standard or a minimal level of acceptability in the relationship. Now, most people have read John and Henry's book on boundaries, and I don't have to say a lot about it, but other people have heard about boundaries. They just don't know how to set them. So we're going to deal with that. And then number 7 is intimacy. Now, when people hear intimacy, some people think of romantic intimacy and talking and being mushy. Well, that's got a point. But we need to talk about the difficult subject of physical or sexual intimacy. But we don't start there because, we really have to start over here in the area of emotional intimacy with each other, where we're truly connecting emotionally so that both of us feel together, connected, accepted, and loved. Then we can move to physical intimacy. But all of this needs to be on a foundation of spiritual intimacy. How can you have spiritual intimacy if you're a Christian, a believer, and the other person isn't? Well, we're going to do the best we can to make that the best that we can. Because a lot of times, if you're with a non-believer, there's a big split because you want to talk about Christian things, godly things. The other person, it just pushes them farther and farther away. They don't want to be around you. And then we're going to talk about dating. So often when people get in trouble, they stop dating. They don't have any fun. They don't do anything enjoyable. So we're going to talk about how do we come up with some things that could be really enjoyable for us to do in dating. Having a date night. When kids come along, it seems like for so many couples, it just shoots the dating game right in the neck or the foot or wherever. And so we really do have to care enough about the marriage, care enough about the person we married to do what we did before we were married. We need to date. We need to plan it. We need to set time away for it, and we'll talk about all of that. That'll probably be our 8th session. My wife and I did this book called The Mediterranean Love Plan. And we looked at all these different cultures in the Mediterranean and drew from certain cultures certain things that made that whole culture work. And when it comes to this one, we're going to look at Spain. Because Spain is a place where people date, love, and have fun. Imagine, that's the place where they have the big tomato fight, the largest food fight in the world. That's the place where they run with the bulls. Many times they're eating dinner at midnight, breaking plates, dancing, doing all that. So we'll talk about that because we've got to develop some good times or we're not going to have times at all. We're going to be like roommates or more like not even mates of any kind, just roomies who kind of pass each other during the day and don't ever connect at night. So we're going to do all of those things. And just think about it. If you could put all of those elements into a marriage, you know that it would be magnificent. Imagine where you felt heard and accepted and loved. Imagine if the feelings you expressed were validated by the other person. And it's almost like you felt like they got it. And that they felt kind of the way you felt. and it was okay to feel that way. And just imagine if you could sit down and look at the most difficult area of your life and come away from that conversation feeling closer than you've ever been. Wouldn't that be magnificent? I sure think so. And imagine if you could make your baggage work for you rather than against you. I think that'd be pretty magnificent too. So we're going to deal with all of that in this series, and tomorrow we'll start with communication. I am so glad that you joined me. Now, if you need some help, it's 1-800-NEW-LIFE. The book I mentioned is The Mediterranean Love Plan. 7 different things from different cultures in the Mediterranean, and every one of those things has 13 different ideas that you can do together. That's pretty fun. And I've heard so many good things about this book. People that have actually done the 13 things under each cultural area. I'll see you tomorrow. If you need some help, 1-800-NEW-LIFE. Don't forget, Life Recovery Today, Thursday, 11 a.m. on the NRB network. God bless you. See you again tomorrow.